Welcome back to the Kyber Collective. I'm one of your three hosts, Annie, and I'm joined by Flowers.
Yo!
And Sig.
Hello.
And today we're tackling the state of the galaxy. Sort of like a State of the Union, except for it's the state of the galaxy. But I have to start with a confession. And the confession is, I don't like grit. It's coarse and overused at this point, and so irritating. And it means nothing at this point. Not like here. Here, everything is fun and sane. So yeah.
I agree. Yeah. We are in agreement.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Andor, and it doesn't seem to be doing nearly as well as people had hoped. I don't think it's doing as well as it deserves, honestly, in my opinion. And yet, this is the grit that everybody wanted. Everybody's dirty. There's a brothel. People have sex. It's heavily implied that there's sex going on. There's cold-blooded murder, you know. So why are the numbers so bad? And also on the other side of the coin, I don't even notice as many hate videos as I saw for, like, you know, the sequels and Boba Fett and Obi-Wan. There's just like so many hate videos in my recommended on YouTube, like every day. And now, like, they're just not showing up.
Is that a bad thing?
Well, I figured that there could be a couple of reasons why this is. All right, number one, my blocking feature has finally worked. Like, I try to block, like, the worst ones, but I don't know. They somehow keep getting recommended. Maybe it finally worked. Okay. 2, the subtle storytelling isn't giving them the hard-on of anti-woke righteousness.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a possibility there.
3, too much politics, not enough explosions. They're very bored. Number 4, the main character is not a woman, or a character that had decades of personal headcanon built up around them.
That one is, like, fatal in the Star Wars universe.
Honestly, I think that one's it, because I remember when Andor was announced and everyone was like, why the fuck do we need a show about the guy from Rogue One? Which honestly is kind of how I felt about it, because I was like, really, that dude? But I think there are a lot of people who never got over that, and Andor was released a really long time ago, and, like, you know,
Rogue One was released a really long time ago.
Yeah, but, like, I vividly remember, and the people that I still see saying the, like, why are we getting a Cassian Andor show, are also the people that are, well, really should be on my block list.
Yeah, I think I feel like it's a few things. Like, one of them that you listed is he doesn't have a lot of decades worth of history and headcanon, and so people are not having so much to say about decisions made on his character because there's nothing to go off of yet.
Yeah.
I mean, you had him in that one movie, and in that one movie he's kind of, like, established as a rebel, right? So you just get to see him pre-rebel. So the bar is much lower, and I feel that way with, like, other things, like the Mandalorian is a brand new character, or was brand new when they introduced him, and so the amount of criticism you get for that is not quite the same as the criticism that we got for Boba Fett and the criticism that you got for Obi-Wan Kenobi, because these are beloved characters and characters from that showed up in the original trilogy, and you get a whole gamut of opinions on it. And also, like Sig said, some people don't understand why this guy's getting a show and why we should care. So maybe that's part of it. Like, do I really want to see a show about a guy who's, like, dead? Which is ironic, because, I mean, everyone is dead. Like,
yeah,
everyone in Star Wars
the whole
canon at this point.
prequels, like
the whole prequels, yeah.
Yeah. It's the reason I hear it. That doesn't mean that it's a good reason.
Yeah.
I think that that's a really good point. The Mandalorian people didn't have decades of headcanon about him, and no one really had much to complain about. I think that might be turning around. I think season 3 is going to be looked at a lot more critically.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. But there's just a general air of fatigue, I think. Like, we're reaching that point of saturation where it's been, how many years has it been since The Mandalorian dropped it? That was well pre-COVID.
That was 2019, and now it's 2022.
Yeah. Was that season 2 was 2019, or was...
2019 is when it dropped, the first season.
Yeah, because I do kind of get the vibe that, like, I don't know, there's this, like, kind of horrible thing that happens when you get all of this really cool content, but then people start getting fatigued or they start getting picky, because it's like when it's the only thing that you have to eat, like, it's like if it's the only hamburger you've had for like a year, then you're like, shit, this McDonald's is real hot shit. But then when you're like surrounded by 10 hamburgers from different places, then you start getting really picky about it being like edible.
Yeah, it's very true.
And like, I do wonder whether now people have seen so much Star Wars stuff that Andor is like receiving. Like, if Andor had been the first one that had dropped right after Rogue One, or like in 2019, would we be living in an Andor crazy world instead of Grogu crazy world? I mean,
he
wouldn't
Grogu,
have a baby Yoda.
I think that one of the reasons why me personally, Annie, is getting tired of Mandalorian,
Yeah,
is because I see Grogu slapped on every damn thing known to existence. Like, I saw Grogu, like little, it's on everything.
Everything.
Yeah. Every kind of food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can eat him, wear him, put him on your shelf in every possible permutation. There's, if you can think of it, there's a Grogu version out there.
Grogu chapstick, I'm sure it's there.
Yeah.
Grogu fruit snacks, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Grogu fruit snacks.
Yeah.
And I really, like, who doesn't love Grogu? He's a cute little baby. I love Grogu, but when you see Grogu on everything, it's just, it gets to be a little much when, like, you're at Michael's, the craft store, and there's, like, a whole shelf of, like, cheap Grogu stuff that's, like, half price. You're just like, what has this become? I think a lot of that is the Disney licensing. I don't know. Not that George Lucas didn't.
Yeah, he sold the shit out of.
Yeah.
I feel like if they had introduced Andor as the Disney Plus launch series, it wouldn't have had this amount of jumpstart that The Mandalorian did, though. Like, if because Andor is quite a grim story, and truth be told, and that there's no end point to it, that, well, because like in The Mandalorian, it's very open-ended right now where things can go, and there's some like hope for the future. And Andor, it's like, well, we know he's gonna like get burnt to a crisp.
Yeah,
he's gonna die. So it's not. It won't jumpstart anything. It'll just make a lot of people very sad in 2019, and then you would have had COVID, and then you'd really be sad.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like my number 7. Was the fandom has finally met the threshold. No more fight left in them. Need a hibernation from complaining all the damn time. So they're taking a break with Andor, or maybe it's the awesomeness of Stellan Skarsgård, who is shielding the show like a forest blast, because he's amazing on the show. Anyways, it's like, for me, like, I know that there's like such amazing content out there right now. There's like House of the Dragon, and there's Rings of Power, She-Hulk. But my favorite has been Andor, and it just seems like people are definitely not talking about it.
Do you think it's the timing too, then? Because you just listed a bunch of shows running at the same time right now, and there's a lot of saturation in content. And
there's a lot of stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
However, I see a lot of people talking about Rings of Power. And it's usually how people talk about Star Wars content, which is hate video after hate video. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe you cracked the code, man.
We found something new to hate.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, Rings of Power is like the perfect setup in that it has the source material has a very devoted fan base, many of whom are very particular about details, shall we say. It's a reboot of something that hasn't been on screen for a very, very long time. So we're dipping back into an extremely well-loved franchise, and it completely breaks the canon. So it's like, yeah, it's like the, I don't know, triumvirate of things to complain about on the internet. I have really enjoyed watching everyone lose their minds over the Rings of Power, actually, because like it's funnier as well when you're not at the level where you're doing a podcast about the topic where you're like, we're probably in too deep. Whereas like for the Rings of Power, I'm like, deep. Yeah, I'm not quite that level of submerged. So it's just like hilarious because you're just like, like, yeah, I broke the canon, but like, who cares, man? Like, it doesn't change anything, you know? Like the book still exists. Like, this is what gets me when everyone cries about how like Obi-Wan's character has been ruined. It's like, well, his character still exists, man. You can just like ignore this show. And I realize this is rich coming from a person who talks about The Last Jedi the way I
do. That's the thing, though. We take our own advice.
Yeah. We're not always successful, but at least we have the thought process there and we're trying.
Yeah. Like, Andor is a funny one. Andor is a really funny one because I think you're right, Annie. Like it is, I think it's one of the more interesting things, one of the more interesting projects that they've tried to undertake. I think it's a tone shift for the entire corpus of, especially what Disney's putting out. And yet the reaction
has the grit.
It has the grit. It has like
grits that everybody has been begging for years. Grits. Give me Star Wars grits.
For me,
here it is.
The only thing with Andor is I do feel like it has missed its window a little bit. And the thing it reminds me of is the Black Widow movie, which is not by any means the worst Marvel movie that has ever been put out. But like was so late in coming that it arrived and you were just kind of like, oh, well, I guess I'll watch it. Which is kind of how it felt because we've been hearing about Andor from well before I remember like when Kenobi was still going to be a movie and they were like filming Andor.
We used to joke about it. Yeah. Like on this podcast, we'd be like, has anybody heard anything about Andor? Does he still exist?
Yeah, let Diego Luna out of the basement was like a joke that we were saying for like a year. Yeah. And so like when it finally arrived, I guess I was just a bit like, oh, well, I guess Andor is here now. But like, I almost feel like it's missed the window of like, the hype went on for too long, and I wonder if that contributes to the kind of general apathy. I do also think people should get over it, and I include myself in this. But like people just need to let it go and just watch the show and take from it what they would like to. But there does seem to be just a general air of like, okay, about Andor.
It's like, it's like, oh, there it is. Okay, I guess I'll get to it at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like, like a lot of the pop culture commentators or whatever, they were talking about the first 3 episodes. Let's be honest, the first 3 episodes are like 1 episode.
Yeah.
But then, and I've heard this from a couple different people, viewership was so bad that there wasn't any point in actually making more content.
What do you mean making more content?
As in people
like
reacting
doing reacting to weekly episodes.
Yeah.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So is that a margin? Is that a margin we should be measuring with the success of something? Is how much YouTube talks about it, though? That's the other thing.
Well, not only YouTube, but like Twitter and just like social media, like having something trend. All of that, I guess, together.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I'll see a lot more Rings of Power and House of the Dragon than I'm seeing Andor frankly, even She-Hulk, but that's a different conversation. But
Yeah, it's entirely different. And that's the thing, like, even if it's a bunch of people like hating on something, it's still engagement. It's still the talk of, you know.
It's super disappointing in the sense, especially that I think the people working on this show are doing such an incredible job. Like Diego Luna is outstanding. His work has been so incredible. Like I'm actually, I don't know why I'm so impressed. I should have already known he would have been amazing, but it's just really impressive that what he's doing. And I think the supporting cast is incredible. It's a real shame if it's not getting a good viewership.
Yeah, and it's so different. It's really surprising me. They're really like letting you into the lives of people that we've never really seen before, like people in the Empire. Or Mon Mothma has a husband and a daughter. It's just, you know, and her house. Oh my gosh, how amazing is that woman's house? And her coats.
Impeccable outfits.
I gotta say, the costumes on this show, wow, like amazing,
really good quality. That's the other thing with Andor. The budget that this show very clearly got is making it really fun to watch.
But it is interesting if it really did get, because I don't know the numbers, but if it did get a good chunk of Disney's budget, because it's longer than I think everything else that they've put out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's an interesting basket to put all their eggs in. But again, I kind of like, this is very much a personal theory, and it ties very closely to how I personally feel about some aspects of the show. So I might be riding it a little bit too hard. But again, I think that they've kind of missed their window. They clearly put a lot of money and a lot of passion into it. And like, if they had slipped this in, like when people were still jazzed about The Mandalorian, before everyone had gone a bit bitchy, like,
yeah,
I think that it's
before the disappointments.
Yeah, because I think I think you're right, Annie. Like, I can't remember what number it was on the list, but like, people are tired.
It doesn't matter.
You know, like, I think people feel kind of burnt out, and it sucks because like, this is, on paper, I actually think this is one of the more interesting things that they're doing with Star Wars. And it's something that almost feels very overdue for Star Wars, is that kind of man on the ground view and the close look at the politics, like Mon Mothma, random people in the Empire, and like looking at their lives, looking at somebody like Cassian Andor and following them. It's actually kind of surprising that we haven't had this before.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate that all of this work has been dropped at a time when it's competing with the revival of two major franchises. It's at the tail end of like the more controversial Star Wars shows, or the disappointing Star Wars shows, depending on how you want to look at it. I was not disappointed, but you know, and I think that it's just kind of clustered together to take the supports out from Andor, which is a shame, because like, what a cool thing to be bringing to this universe.
And it's I gotta say, it's the most beautifully shot of any of the Disney Plus shows.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I probably add in the Marvel shows in that equation.
Oh yeah,
it's beautifully shot.
Really, really stunning stuff that they do in this show. It is a shame, and I think there's another factor in this, perhaps, in that the Star Wars fatigue is like a legitimate Star Wars fatigue, in that it's repeating kind of things that, not repeating, but exploring places in an already established canon rather than in developing new. Like, it's going into the Rebellion era. Well, we've seen the Rebellion era, and we've seen back and forth in the start of it and the end of it. And the Kenobi was kind of the same. We've seen the prequels. So maybe people are like, when are we going to move on from this 1 through whatever 6 era of time? And, you know, when are we going to get, I mean, that's a whole other issue, but I feel like maybe people are kind of tired of seeing the same story. Oh, the Empire. Oh, like the rebellion. Oh, the rise of the dark side. Like it's just trapped in this one area. That's not how I feel, but I think perhaps that's how people might be also feeling.
Yeah, no, I find this period of time fascinating. But you're probably right. People are like, all right, so we know what happens. What's next?
Maybe. I mean, I really struggle to know what it is people want. I hear a lot about what people don't want. I know what I want. I feel like I know what you guys want. But I really would not want to be someone in some kind of Disney planning meeting trying to figure out what it is the Star Wars fans want. Because that sounds like the worst job.
Well, all you have to do is listen to this show. Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, please.
We have the answers. Oh, yes. I feel like this might be a different topic, but I feel like they're potentially ignoring a whole era of Star Wars, current Star Wars, new fans, and I don't know how much a factor this might be in viewership, but like the sequel era does exist. The sequel era is there. There's nothing happening in it other than perhaps some books and some supplementary material that might be coming out. But that is a huge demographic that's not being represented anywhere. And I don't know if there's anything in the works or in progress for anything in that era or anything coming after that era. Even the movies that maybe are in projection to be made, like with Taika or Rian Johnson. But I don't know if they're going in that direction. Is it all going backwards? Is it going even further? Is it going in the High Republic? Like, I feel like no one's moving forward anymore.
I'm not even sure anybody knows, honestly.
I don't know. I find it really difficult to like know if I feel that this is. In some respects, it's quite nice. Like, I definitely understand the like, I guess, sadness of it not being picked up and not trending and not everything. But on the other hand, there is something quite nice about a show that's like not being nitpicked to death, that you can just enjoy. And I wonder if that is ultimately going to wind up being the like sections of the corpus that I enjoy the most, because that is often how a lot of other things work. Is there's like, you know, you find your little bits and your little niches, and it's like your quiet corner, you know. And Andor seems like it might actually be quite a cool quiet corner. What I struggle to wrap my head around is like, this feels like it should tick a lot of boxes about hitting, you know, enough of nostalgia but enough novelty to be interesting. You're hitting kind of key time periods. It's got grit. It's
Grit.
And like
the grit. They finally delivered the grit. Sorry.
We all wanted the gritty Star Wars.
Yeah, y'all wanted the gritty Star Wars.
Like I just want dumb lightsaber fights.
That's actually, that reminds me, that's actually something that the people that are talking about it say that they love about the show, is that there's no space wizards.
The fuck is wrong with you? Sorry, but like, why are you here? The Space Wizard is the franchise. Go watch Lost in Space. I can't think of another one.
Right.
Not Star Trek.
Why are you here?
Don't put Star Trek in there. We don't want them there.
No, stay out of that one. It's terrible. There's loads of wizards everywhere. There's constant wizards, and they actually kind of are. So don't go there. But, like, what? Why would you? Why? Who doesn't like this space? Who hurt them? Who?
I know.
Hurt them?
I think there's definitely like a huge portion of the fandom. I don't know how huge they are, but they don't want, and they're like tired of Jedi stories or Skywalker or like even Easter eggs. They just I don't know. They just like want. I'm not sure what they want. There's lots of other stories.
Well, if you don't want any of the things that are attached to that franchise, then it's probably time to let it go for a bit. And
exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I think we've all been there of like, you love something a lot, but you're just like a bit tired of pointing your face at it. And the one thing that I do not love, and this might be slightly controversial, I feel like we actually do have too much content, because like, I don't know, I feel like I need to digest it, and it just feels like content is being thrown at my face. I mean, this isn't specifically Star Wars, it's just content in general that's coming out. And it feels like trying to drink from a fire hose sometimes. And I'm like, I've only got enough hours a day to like, I gotta brush my teeth, like, I have to eat, like, I ain't got time for this. Like, it just, I feel like there's so much stuff all the time, and it makes me almost incapable of actually enjoying and savoring things. And there was like a sweet spot. My sweet spot will always be the Lord of the Rings movies, where you had the one big drop a year, and it was like the thing that happened that year.
Yeah, like, what an amazing time that was.
Yeah, and like the original prequels, you know, like they were just, you know, they were like garnish on your life. Yeah. They were just, but you know, spaced out. Like, I could do one Andor a year would be amazing. And they would probably have more budget to put on these things, because definitely the lack of budget showed in Kenobi.
Yeah.
Like, and there were loads of filler, and like the pacing was weird, and like, you know, you don't have to do a rush job. Just, and it does feel like it's about money, about just churning content out. And I think that has done Andor a massive disservice, because that's not what it feels like Andor is, but it feels like Andor is suffering from that, even though it's not. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you there. You can tell they really took their time on this. There was no rushing. To the point where your point before was right, like maybe they missed their window on it, but it's definitely a quality.
Yeah. Well, what gets me right, like, absolutely blows my mind, is like they were sitting on Andor, like, you know, beautifully crafting this, and then someone greenlit the Book of Boba Fett and chucked that out into the void, and they looked at that as a finished product and went, this seems like a cohesive television show, just chuck it at the screen. Like, there are so many of those that probably should have gone back for a little bit more editing. The Book of Boba Fett, I think, is the most egregious, just because of how disjointed a story it was.
Yeah.
Like, but you've released all of this shit in the interim when you could have actually just held it.
Yeah. And maybe worked on it.
And released much more spaced out, better TV.
Content, yeah.
That is my feedback for Disney. Sorry, Flowers.
No, I'm really feeling you there, because there was a week that just went by recently where I could not watch anything new, anything that was coming out. I was not home. And getting back home and having 3 episodes of Andor, 2 episodes of She-Hulk that I'd missed, an episode of Rings of Power, House of the Dragon, I lost my mind. I was like, I can't. Mm-hmm. I physically could not. What I ended up doing instead was I put on like reruns of Elementary, and I just watched that, because I could not handle the backlog of things that I'd missed. And it took me a while to catch up, but it's too much. It's so oversaturated, and that's just content in general. And it does feel like we have free will. Obviously you don't have to watch it, but it does have the sense of like, we're telling you what you need to watch, and it's going to be put out, so you're at a constant state of having to watch something that we're showing you every month, like a new series every month, a new thing you should be caring about every month. And it's almost weird complaining about it, because like I appreciate seeing it, I appreciate having it, but I can't keep up. And also, like you said, to your point, Sig, there are things that are getting rushed that shouldn't have, and things that could have been thoughtfully put out like they should have. And I think Andor is falling in that in between, unfortunately.
Yeah. I always kind of wondered about the Book of Boba Fett, what exactly happened there. I think they had a plan that was sort of like thwarted with what's her name? She had a show and then she didn't have a show.
Cara Dune.
Oh yeah.
That show got scrapped, and so they had to had to do some rewriting. But like you said, that's when you like step back and take some more time. It's okay to take some time.
Yeah.
And it all ties back to the streaming war, I'm pretty sure that's happening.
Yeah.
And so it's
That's very true.
That's what's precipitating so much of this is the streaming and the money and the business. And not that this is anything particularly new, but it's the streaming itself that it's such like high competition that you just can't stop. If you stop, you're forgotten, which is a larger, question of how current media is in general. Of if you're not constantly producing something, you're forgotten.
Yeah, there's that. Also, if you're not constantly consuming something, then you're not existing properly. I mean, there's a whole thesis of, I don't know, some kind of philosophic existentialism about the way that we now consume media in there. Because it's no longer possible to keep up, I don't think, with the big major franchises. Like, you physically can't. Like, if you think of Star Wars as a whole, to play every game, read the books as they're released, keep up with the comics, and watch the TV shows would be a full-time job.
Yeah.
Same for Marvel, if you wanted to do that. Same for most of these things now, is that it is actually like beyond the scope of what one person can keep up with. And if you think about all that stuff that's coming out is considered canon, no one knows what canon is anymore, because you're just like, fuck, I don't know, there are like 10 new books, I haven't read them, stuff happened, I don't know, somebody said, I've heard through the grapevine via like 6 people that, like, I don't know, Mace Windu's not dead, and like someone has a girlfriend, I don't know, like, it's just it's you shouldn't, it seems wrong fundamentally, or at least it seems ass backwards, to own a property and then physically produce more content than people can consume. It's the same kind of wasteful that, I don't know, is the way we produce food and clothing and everything else in the world.
You're totally right.
Yeah, I can't keep up.
No, it's true though. Like I'm kind of devastated, honestly. I want to be able to keep up with Star Wars. I love Star Wars.
I know there's a whole Kenobi book also that came out that I have not been able to read. I just can't. I have no time.
I still haven't finished Brotherhood.
Yeah, me neither. And that Luke and Lando book, I wanted to read that one too.
Yeah.
The High Republic books, they're still waiting for me. The Thrawn books are still waiting for me. I can't. There's this just huge backlog of things that I don't have enough hours in the day with the full-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did have to make a couple of sacrifices. Like, I stopped watching She-Hulk. And then after this week, I'm stopping watching House of the Dragon, as I've told you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a clear up sometime. I'm stopping that one too.
It'll clear up a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And not because it's not a good show, just so that we don't get any comments, but because
we're tired, guys. We're tired. We don't have time anymore. It's
an amazing show. It's just, I don't like misery.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Which you could argue, then why are you watching Andor? However,
it's a different kind of misery.
It's a very different kind of misery.
I don't know about you guys, but this whole conversation is making me like really nostalgic for, I guess, like what would have been our kind of teen and young adult years of like, you really had to wait for shit. But like when you loved a book series, like you read a book and then it was like a year and a half, and then the next book would come out and you would like get there on the bookstore like on the first day, or you'd beg for it for Christmas or something, and then you'd read the whole book in one day and not speak to anyone. Or like you'd wait for this movie to come out and you'd have to wait for ages and ages, and then you'd go on opening day, but it would be like one of like 2 movies you'd see on opening day that year. So it was like a bigger deal. Like now if you go, we still go to stuff on opening day, but it's like, this is my 6th one and it's March. Like it just like I feel like I'm really nostalgic for waiting for things, for being really excited and waiting. And it was like my big thing that was going to happen that year.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't get that feeling very much anymore.
No.
Yeah, it's true. Remember going to the bookstore at midnight for a new Harry Potter release?
Oh my
Oh
God,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. That was
Yeah.
incredible. Like it was a whole time of, you had your 2 to 3 things a year max that were happening in terms of movies and TV, and then you had like a book, and you could wait, like you said, a year and a half for the next thing, and you can just savor, and you had time to really enjoy what you saw and you read.
And that's the thing, that's where I became a maniac, because you had nothing to do for that year and a half. So I just reread those books and rewatched those movies. Like that was my going insane time. I need it. Like now I don't have time to rewatch anything.
I know. I want time to rewatch Kenobi, but heck, how am I supposed to? I don't have the time.
I feel like the art of savoring things has been lost. But I recognize that I have real, like, you young kids with your pogo sticks and your VCRs energy right now. So, like, you know,
we'll tone it down.
I'm very get off my lawn at the moment. But it was great. It was great, guys. The 90s was where it was at.
Oh, I'm in full agreement. It was. You hear this every generation. We used to laugh at them, but I mean it. Like, it was simpler because you had less to consume and less to think about all the time, and it's such a strange thing to complain about, but sometimes you need things spaced out, and it's hard keeping up when it's not.
Yeah, I think you're right in mentioning streaming a lot. I think the streaming wars, it's made these companies try to combat the churn. They don't want people unsubscribing and going to like Netflix or HBO Max or whatever. So they need to pump out constant content. And I don't know if they care about quality so much.
Netflix sure doesn't.
No, they only care about like subscriptions, right? So I don't know what's going to happen. The streaming is getting to be too much. Like, you can't have them all. There's just absolutely no way.
It's like buying channels now, you know, like every channel has a streaming service and you may as well get cable again.
Exactly. It's turning into cable. Like, what's the point? Somebody was telling me they got Paramount Plus the other day, and I'm like, why? Paramount
Big
Plus?
Brother
What's on
there,
Paramount Plus?
Star Trek.
Star Trek and Big Brother are on there, Annie.
Well, no. Also, the other thing that's on Paramount is that show that wildly popular, the one with Kevin Costner, the Western, like the modern day Western. The name escapes me right now. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. I can't remember the name anymore.
Yellowstone.
There you go. My coworker has been telling me to watch that. Yellowstone is super popular right now.
But yeah, there's like whole shows that are wildly popular that are not even on my radar, like Yellowstone. I know you guys are like super into Star Trek, but honestly, I'm glad that I have a break from.
Oh yeah,
I don't think I could get into some. Yeah, and there's going to be like a Picard season 3 apparently. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, all right. So moving on from Andor, and by the way, it's amazing. If anybody's not listening, go watch it.
Yeah, I feel like
Please do.
The intention is not at all to be down on Andor in this, because it's actually, I think most of us are arguing that Andor is in fact quite good and is suffering under the weight of things that are not good.
Yes.
So do watch Andor.
Yeah, Andor is awesome.
Please do. You will like it.
And we were touching on this before, but where do we go after the sequels? I mean, eventually they're going to want to tell a story that happens after the fall of the First Order, right?
So if you've closed the Skywalker saga, presumably you have to move past the Skywalker saga. So it has to be something completely different and not calling back to any of its prior entanglements. So you would need a new villain and a new... Because, like, what is Star Wars, right? You have some type of political baddie, and then you have a hero, and you have some supporters for fighting for the good side, and some lore. So you need something like that, but something brand new.
I've been thinking for a while that they've been trying to sort of like go around the sequels with the TV content, like The Mandalorian and all that. Like Ezra, right? He was gone for a
Yes.
long time. Where was he? Like they'll bring Ezra back, and like the story that has to do with like Ahsoka and him and maybe Mando and Thrawn, like there's their story, and then like the Skywalkers running parallel, and then the streaming story will sort of just like go around the Skywalkers and keep going into the future. Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I it's hard to talk about what would happen after the sequels because I feel like at the end of The Rise of Skywalker, there's nowhere obvious to go next. So it's kind of everything and nothing, right? Like it's like you have until the end of the universe to fill with stories. You could do literally anything because like there will still be force sensitive people. You can revive presumably something akin to the Jedi as many times as you want. You could go in a completely different direction. You could have no Jedi at all for those crazy people who don't like space wizards. You can you can do literally anything because you can say, oh, it's like 200 years after the fall of the First Order and here's new stuff. Like it makes it really difficult to make any guesses because it could be fantastic, it could be absolute dog shit, it could be everything in between because it could be literally anything. But there's no obvious like, oh, I finished The Rise of Skywalker, and you know what I'd really like to know is what happens to like background lady who had the lesbian kiss. Like I still don't even know her name. Like there's no one like I kind of assume everyone's fine and they lived a life.
Yeah, that's one of the tragedies of those movies is you don't really care about what happens next, do you?
That's why like the only thing I can think of is they'd have to start somewhere new, like I don't know, 100 years later, Rise of the Night Sisters, and like something like that happens, and there's some magic problem happening, and like you have to come up with something brand new.
That would be cool.
Well, you could like it could be absolutely anything, and it could be absolutely fantastic. And one of you, Flowers, I think, said earlier about like we're always rehashing the same like little small period of time. Like I do think I would be interested in something either way in the past or way in the future that's a different version of the society with obviously the same. They're a Jedi. They're blah blah blah. They're blah blah blah. Like. It would be cool to see something genuinely kind of off the wall and quite different. And like there are aspects of the universe that I think are really underexplored that I've always really liked, like the Wills and that one episode of the Clone Wars where Yoda like goes and talks to Qui-Gon's spirit, and like there's some great weird shit out there that would just it's trippy and like so bizarre, and it would be so much fun to explore. And it would probably bomb. But if we're gonna bomb anyway, then like bomb interesting.
There's a lot of trippy shit out there. Yeah, definitely.
I agree. Like, let's take a risk and let's try something completely new. And it doesn't have to have legacy stories or legacy characters, and just be close enough that it's reminiscent of the universe that you're in, and go from there.
Yeah, I think as long as it's not like some kind of like empire rising.
Yeah, I think we've seen that enough.
Not again.
Yeah. We've seen it twice.
Yeah.
I always thought that it would be cool if we got a scenario where everyone sort of like had to work together to defeat an even bigger enemy than the Empire. Like, I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong because you know how you read something in your mind over and over and you're pronouncing it wrong in your head? But then, like Hermione, right? She's still Hermione to me. Like, I know I say everybody says Coruscant. I in my head it's Coruscant, and I can't stop saying it like that. But the Yuuzhan Vong, which is a race of people that are immune to the Force in the books or in Legends. But I always thought it would be cool for like if Rebel and like Empire backing people had to like work together to defeat this even like huger enemy.
Isn't this something that's potentially going to happen with what's in
Yeah,
Wild Space?
the Thrawn. That's where
Yeah.
they're headed. But
Yeah.
it is such a cool concept. I'm with you, Annie. Like, I would love to see.
I would love that.
Yeah, and I would love to see it at a minimum them at least execute that in what's happening in the Thrawn books. But Thrawn isn't necessarily my favorite person to do it either. So I liked your pick. Yeah, I think that would be very cool, and it would be a nice way of kind of turning a lot of it on its head. And also, like, if we're thinking political things, like we've done the rise and fall of fascism. There's obviously more to be said about it, especially now. But, like, I don't know, Star Wars could tackle climate change or any of the other major issues that are facing the planet at the moment that might also be sort of political things that we could explore.
I think so. Let's go there.
Yeah.
Tackle it. There's so many systems in the Star Wars universe.
This is my long game. All hail rise of the Agricorps.
Yeah, the Agricorps. I love it.
They will be canon again.
I love it. We've tied things together. We've connected the dots.
I've connected two things.
I think it's going to be years until we get another movie, though.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone knows what's going on.
You can get a movie if they take a break from the shows. At least that's what I think.
Yeah. It seems like Taika Waititi, I don't know what in the world's going on there. They finally decided to say, okay, yeah, Patty Jenkins isn't making this movie anymore. We admit that now. Apparently Rian Johnson's still making their trilogy, although I don't really believe it, honestly. Unless his Glass Onion movie does extremely well, then maybe. I don't know.
Isn't he? It's a trilogy, right? That he's gonna do or something, or is it just a movie?
A trilogy, he keeps saying. And he's the one saying that it's still on him. Like, not really. I'm not sure what Lucasfilm is saying about it.
Can I poke at that one? What do you think he can make a good trilogy? Would you want to see a trilogy from him?
No.
Yeah, I would not want to see a trilogy from him. However, there is that the number of people who liked The Last Jedi is quite high. That doesn't mean it would be an unsuccessful trilogy.
This is true.
And I'm a big girl. I don't have a problem with that. Like, because I don't have time, as established by this conversation. I don't have time to watch everything, so I can just take Rian Johnson's trilogy off my plate. I don't know if I would be interested in anything he has to say if it's similar to the kind of things he had to say in The Last Jedi. But you never know. Like, honestly, what was Knives Out? Knives Out was genuinely good.
It's a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah, give him his own characters.
Yeah. So, and I don't think he's a complete hack. I just think that he was not a good fit for the trilogy that Disney tried to create. But he was just one of many issues. Many issues with the sequel trilogy.
Yeah. Yes. If he had like his own characters and a whole own setting, but his understanding in the Force still wasn't my favorite.
That is what would cinch it for me, is I'm not interested in anything it's like he's let me down so far with his understanding of the Force that I refuse to indulge anymore. But that doesn't mean that it wouldn't necessarily be like, there's a difference between like, I don't like this film, but this is also a well-made film. I believe that he's capable of making a well-made film. It just probably would not be one that would speak to me.
Yeah.
And it might be a shit film. I genuinely think The Last Jedi is debatable in terms of the actual quality of the film itself, regardless of my feelings about his interpretation of the Force.
If they just let him do like a whodunit, right? Like maybe, who murdered this Trandoshan on whatever planet with a candlestick or whatever. What, he could make that movie.
Oh, you know what I would watch? Like a whodunit for like who murdered Grand Admiral Thrawn. And it's like, like a whole lockdown situation in some area, some space base.
I would normally say he gets no more characters, especially beloved characters, but give him Thrawn. Give him Thrawn.
Given Knives Out, like he might actually do well with somebody like Thrawn. Like I think that might actually Machiavellian might play to his strengths. Like
Yeah.
the kind of convoluted bullshit and art critic that Thrawn wants to throw in there probably would actually suit some of the monologues that were in Knives Out. But
I think so. So okay, we found one. We found one type of thing he would really succeed in.
yeah. But like the man makes so much more money than I ever will, so like I'm just here like taking pot shots, like successful filmmaker.
Yeah.
I think the problem with us, all three of us, trying to answer the question of what do we think will happen after the sequels was that we didn't like the sequels. So like, do any of us care what happens after the sequels? I find the question hard to answer because I just don't.
And I think this is why Lucasfilm is focused on this area of time when people did care about what happened. I think they realized that there's not a whole lot of, I mean, there are people that like, I don't think really anybody liked The Rise of Skywalker.
I know at least one person who did.
Okay, I do too, but
yeah. It is like it has an exceptionally poor Rotten Tomatoes score. So, and you don't hear a lot of people saying that they loved The Rise of Skywalker.
No,
like I think it's fair to say that it's not high on most people's lists.
It's not well regarded. It did make a lot of money, but
yeah,
had it been good, it could have made a lot more money.
Yeah. There were a lot of people on Twitter, though, who seemed to think that it was an amazing film, and I'm fascinated, absolutely fascinated. I'd love to know what other films they like. Like, what is it about it that was enjoyable? Because like I've had better times in the dentist chair.
Yeah. What other movies would you like if you really enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker? Yeah. Like, do you enjoy the Fast and the Furious franchise?
But yeah, and like I'm being very shitty, and I acknowledge that.
So am I.
It's not that I don't believe people like the film. I believe people can like the film. It's so far removed from my experience that it actually circles back around to being kind of fascinating.
Yeah, no, I would agree because I feel like my interaction with some folks who loved The Rise of Skywalker was like, I guess, the adventure part and maybe low commitment on actual canon. So like Star Wars is not exactly super significant maybe to them, or maybe there's just one thing in this movie that was super important to them and that's what they cared a lot about. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of one of those maybe, which is fine, you know. It's fine that you don't need to hear it from me that it's okay that you like it. You're good. But I don't know. It's not.
I think it's just getting something very different out of the experience, because obviously we are selecting, by virtue of being three people who were prepared to do a Star Wars podcast, we're selecting for a certain personality type. And like the way that we consume media is in fact abnormal.
No, it's very true.
So, like, I, you know, when I'm saying like, it's so far removed from my experience that it circles around to being fascinating. That's also a comment on me, in fact, being weird. Like, because I think any of us would have a hard time sitting through a film that intrinsically struggles to make as much sense as The Rise of Skywalker does, because what we do is we come out of that film and we talk through the plot and discover immediately it doesn't make any sense. I have watched other J.J. Abrams films and just turned my brain off and had a great time. That's probably what's happening. But because I've spent so much time thinking about The Rise of Skywalker, I'm just like, how did you not... Does it not bother you all the times it makes no sense? But the answer is probably not. And that's probably actually... I mean, A, it's a perfectly legitimate way to watch films. And B, it's also something I've done myself. So I should probably just be like, I get it.
Yeah.
Also, at times it was very pretty.
It was beautiful at times, yes. I didn't hate all of it. I think more, it's not that like I hated the movie. It's that at the end of those three movies, I sit and think about what could have been. And I'm very sad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so beyond the sequels, which nobody has any idea what's going on with that, there's a bunch of streaming shows that are coming up, and I just kind of wanted to touch on those, see if you guys are like at all excited about any of these. Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, super stoked for Ahsoka, especially because my boy Ezra Bridger is making an appearance / comeback.
Seriously, Ezra Bridger, and how cool is it that they actually got Ezra Bridger to do it?
I know. they got legitimate Ezra Bridger to come into the role for Ezra Bridger.
Yeah. Like actual Ezra Bridger.
We're being cheeky in case you guys are listening to this and be like, they didn't hire the voice actor. Yes. No, but he looks just like Ezra Bridger down to his eyebrows. How did you do that?
Same exact perfect. Eyebrows. Eyebrows which are animated.
I know.
Somehow his eyebrows are the same.
They found him. That's why it took them so long to announce who they cast. Like, they found someone who looks just like him.
It's amazing. Uncanny.
Yeah, really excited for that. I'm excited that we're potentially seeing some of the Ghost crew. Like, I think we're seeing Sabine for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see Hera's kiddo. Maybe.
I have so many questions about him.
Yeah, me too. So I think there's some cool things. I know Hayden Christensen is denying it, but we know he's in there. He's going to be in this show. So you know how I feel about his return to Star Wars. I'm just going to leave it at that. That's exciting me. Yeah. And Thrawn. Yeah. Getting Thrawn in there. His jump to live action as well. It's really the Filoni cinematic universe that's kind of happening in a lot of the Star Wars content right now.
Mm-hmm. It's very true. How about The Acolyte?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in that for sure.
This was the one that I wasn't super interested in after there was a press release that came out, I think, about, I want to say the lead showrunner saying that they just like didn't watch Star Wars or something.
It was the people who was hiring, I think, as part of the
maybe
writers'
that's
room.
what it was. I remember being kind of turned off by the tenor because I really don't like it when people brag about having no knowledge of the source material. However, it does seem like it could be an interesting concept, but I don't know. This one I'm less jazzed on the scale of, like, you know, Miles Davis to no, I don't know, no syncopation, like there's no saxophones.
No, you're right. It seems like they're casting some pretty awesome people for the show, but that is true. When writers brag, or not necessarily brag, but talk about how they're not familiar with the source material, it's just like, why do you do interviews? Why do you do this to yourself? Straight out the gate.
Especially in a beloved franchise. Like, I remember reading that and saying, oh, please, you shouldn't have said anything.
No, just don't say anything. You just launched 1,000 whiny videos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, setting itself up prematurely.
Us too, we were whining too. Like, it was like, not again.
Yeah. I feel justified in that whining, though, because, like, it's one thing to bring a fresh perspective and be like, oh, I previously worked on stuff that's not very similar with Star Wars. I'm excited to take it in different directions. But, like, you have to know the basics of the franchise. If you don't want to write for a big franchise with a massively established universe, then just don't. That's fine. The write original things, write for write for a franchise that you happen to know really well. All totally acceptable and legitimate. But it's just weird when you're like, oh, I've decided to jump into one of the biggest canon corpuses. It's like, I really wanted to write for Tolkien, but I've never fucking heard of elves. Like, okay. Good job. I want to take the elves in a different direction because, like, I'm not really interested in reading the source material. And I think poetry is evil. It's like, well, then don't pick Tolkien.
Yeah, do something else.
That's my beef with people who are really loud about having zero familiarity with the source material.
I would agree. That's kind of where I am at. I remember reading something that made me feel less unenthused about it, but I, for the life of me, don't remember it. But in general, if that's how they set up the whole writing of this series, then it's a little worried.
Yeah, it's just sort of like maybe like a I don't know, like a lack of respect for the fans, maybe a little bit. Just it's just something that we love so much, and to hire a writer that has never heard of it or has never watched Star Wars, it's just I don't know.
You're setting them for failure too by hiring them, you know?
Definitely.
So I have a lot of questions. And first and foremost is why is Disney Lucasfilm not hiring me? I am right here.
It's very true. Yeah. Agreed.
I can write. Yeah. And I like Star Wars. So that's all you need.
And we've watched everything. We've, like,
yeah.
Y'all have read the Jedi Apprentice books. And the three of us have read every single Dad Vader fic on Archive of Our Own.
So much good Dad Vader fic.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how about the Tales of the Jedi?
Oh, yeah. That's Mr. Qui-Gon and co. I would love to see that.
Yeah, that one looks
Are they short?
Shit.
I honestly don't know.
I thought they were. I thought they were like little. Isn't it like Dooku and Qui-Gon, and it's like intermingling their younger years? I feel like it seems cool. It's got Jedi in it. I'm a really basic bitch. This whole list is gonna be like, are there Jedi in it? Yes.
No. Okay.
Sig likes it. No, Sig doesn't like it. I don't know why I have this veneer of having any other interest in that. I'm just like, are there Jedi? I'm here.
I just like, are we in the minority that we just super love the Jedi so much and we want to see all of the Jedi all of the time?
Maybe Rian Johnson was right about one thing. Like, people stopped liking the Jedi, and my love rose to meet it. I was like, I'm prepared to like the Jedi enough for all of you.
Me too.
We got something right, and we just didn't know it.
Maybe that's why The Last Jedi and I don't get along, because I feel too seen.
Yeah, we do. I do feel like a little bit of a minority in the amount of care and affection I have for the Jedi. I'm sure people do like them, though. But yeah, I think
I'm sure
if I feel like that's my motivation for the Star Wars franchise is the Jedi.
Yeah, I'm here for the laser swords.
Laser swords.
Me too, man.
All the way.
I am all about standing in front of a whole army alone with my laser sword. Like Luke Skywalker. Mm-hmm. All about it. All right, how about the Skeleton Crew? This one with Jude Law, where he like picks up, I don't know, it's Jude Law and a bunch of kids.
Yeah, I'm going to be really honest, Danny. I'd forgotten about that one until you said that just now.
I feel like that one's going to be an unexpected success. That's my guess.
Wait, it's full of children, so
yeah.
If they're cute enough to put on lunchboxes, then probably yes.
No, it's the winning formula.
It is
all right,
formula.
Surly dude.
Yeah.
Somehow encounters cute children that make him less surly and learn to love again. Instant success and billions of dollars.
Yeah. I foresee this in the future of the Skeleton Crew. I can't say I'm particularly too excited about it. I'll watch it. I don't think I care that deeply about it right now. I don't have a reason to.
I don't hate Jude Law. I'm kind of...
No, but I don't like Jude Law either. Like, he's kind of like medium, you know?
I'm just sort of like, meh, he exists. Okay.
It's like a cold bagel, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's there.
I will say he did an amazing young Dumbledore, and
he did, yes.
I never thought I would ever say that. Like, watch those dumb movies. He was like the only good thing about him. Well, him and the
Newt Scamander.
The Newt Scamander, he was good too. But... Okay, so and I think we've talked about how we feel about The Mandalorian. How would you guys feel about Boba Fett season 2?
No.
We don't need a Boba Fett season 2?
I, in hindsight, did not need a Boba Fett season 1.
I don't think a Boba Fett season 2 would be successful. And especially if they frame it the way they did with season 1, where it's a little disjointed. I don't know if it's a needed show actually, honestly. Do we need a Boba Fett season 2? Like, what is there to tell?
It seemed like at the end he was settling into his life as the, the big boss dude. But then it was weird because his last line was like, it seemed like he didn't really want to do it.
Yeah, like he was like, I'm ready to pass this on. I don't really want to be.
Well, yeah, but also like the only fitting end for that show is the fact that even Boba Fett doesn't really know what the hell happened in it. Like, I actually think that's probably one of their better writing choices.
Yo, are we going to review Book of Boba Fett? Because I feel like that'll be certainly interesting.
I feel like anyone listening to this episode has had enough insight into my review of the Book of Boba Fett.
That's true.
Do you really want to hear me talk more about it?
We could talk about it. I mean, we could talk about that, what we were saying, the Filoni cinematic universe. That whole thing.
It's one of the more fascinating TV shows I've ever watched just because of how much the format of it was so not what you expected. Because I remember I was watching Artor's video on The Mandalorian, and it was getting like the time. I could see the little like red bar at the bottom of the YouTube video getting close to the end, and I was like, "Fuck, he's not going to have time to put Mandalorian season 3 in." And then I remembered that Mandalorian season 3 is in fact the Book of Boba Fett. It just had so much Mandalorian in it that I genuinely forgot that it was a different show.
Yeah, no, it became The Mandalorian for 2 whole episodes.
Yeah.
And not only that, the more insulting bit is The Mandalorian got more character development and moved his plot more than did Boba Fett. Like, it was a disjointed mess. The first couple episodes seemed like they were going somewhere, but the fact that somebody looked at that as a finished product and thought, yeah, I'll put that up, is just baffling to me. It's just like, did your editors die? Like, was the script supervisor having a stroke? Like, what happened? It's the same energy as the Rise of Skywalker. I just really want to know what the hell went on. But it makes it, it's very juicy to like deconstruct because it makes no sense.
It's very true. Maybe if they would have named it something different, like I don't know, Jabba's palace, like Once Upon a Time on Tatooine.
Maybe.
Because it wasn't really about Boba Fett. I mean, it was, but it also wasn't.
If you take out the Boba Fett show from Disney canon, does it change anything?
Well, it might when we get to Mandalorian season 3.
See, that's the thing. That is the only thing that changes.
Yeah, I can't. I can't say that I necessarily like that Grogu went back with Din, that he left Jedi training, because we love the Jedi and whatever, but I understand why they did it. And this is turning into a discussion about the Book of Boba Fett. Okay. Are they coming out with another season of Visions? I think so. And if so, I think that I can skip that one. And then did you guys enjoy The Bad Batch? I know people are like really waiting for news on The Bad Batch season 2.
I didn't mind The Bad Batch. I don't need more Bad Batch. It's kind of one of those for me.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. There are things I like about it. There are things I didn't like about it.
And I think that's about it, honestly. I think those are everything that's been announced so far, unless I'm missing something. I know that they announced a Lando show years ago. Have you heard anything about that?
No. You're the only person I hear this from. I don't know anything about a Lando show.
It feels like there's loads of stuff they announced at one point or another that's clearly been shelved. Or, like Diego Luna, they are locked in a basement and we'll see them in like 3 years. I mean, maybe that's the reason Andor's released, is because they put Don Glover in there.
It could be that, how they don't really like announce stuff much anymore. I know that a lot of people were disappointed in Disney Plus Day this year because there just really wasn't a ton of news. And maybe that's because of all of the stuff they've announced in the past, and so much has just gone to shit. Like Patty Jenkins doing that video, or that sort of like trailer about the movie she was going to make, and now it's just dead.
It's kind of dead in the water. I don't know. This discussion has made me kind of think of, I'm not exactly, I mean, apart from Ahsoka and maybe Tales of the Jedi, I don't think there's anything I'm super jazzed about right now in terms of what's coming up.
I'm super jazzed about Ezra Bridger and Qui-Gon. That's about it, really.
2 Jedi.
You're right. Jedi.
Jedi. We're so predictable.
Hey, we're okay, but at least we're not like, so when's the Jedi showing up on Andor?
No, no. That's just inappropriate.
I'm not that far gone, but I love some Jedi. Like when I saw the holocron in Stellan Skarsgård's antique shop, I was the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. I was pointing.
Same. I was like, wait, what? What's that? That was great.
All right. So anything else you guys want to talk about with the Disney Plus shows or the state of the galaxy in general?
State of the galaxy in general is I need less stuff and less talking, mean things. And if those 2 things can happen, I am a happy flower.
Less talking, mean things.
Less
I said what I said.
Less talking, mean things.
Yeah, because sometimes the fandom or the more contentious side of fandom really bums us out sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the difference is that when we do it, we're right.
Sig,
we don't have, okay, this podcast is us. This is like us just like nerding out and then also shitting on The Last Jedi. There are things that we do love.
Yeah.
But our like entire podcast isn't dedicated to like negativity.
The thing is, we're not mean about it. And like,
no,
I don't, there's a difference in like criticism and just being awful. I like to think we're not awful.
No. There's like a general tenor. Like you can tell the difference between people who are passionately critiquing and people who are thriving for one reason or another off negativity. I mean, I think some of it's just that they enjoy that aspect of it. And some of it is definitely that people are making money through clicks by being hypercritical of new things. And I do think that's quite a powerful driver. It's not really fandom specific. It's more just internet specific, but like it's pretty clear on places like YouTube where you can monetize. Negative reactions do produce a lot of clicks, which therefore produces more money, which incentivizes you to be more negative and more critical. And I don't really know how you break that cycle, but I'm sure that it's part of the whole kind of vibe that circles around.
Yeah, it's making fandom.
It comes back to money then, like content money on how you should behave to get more clicks and more views and more likes or more engagement, even if they hate it. It doesn't matter if they hate it anymore.
Yeah, but that's that's a problem bigger than fandom, isn't it? That's I would argue it's a really big problem in journalism at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
A very big problem. It's polarizing people more and more.
There we go, getting philosophical again.
Yeah, so the state of the galaxy is pretty bleak.
Sorry, guys. Watch Andor.
Yeah.
Those are what we'll sign off with.
I have faith that Ezra Bridger is going to pull us out of it.
How can you be down when that little chicken nugget's out there with his purgles?
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
You know how much we used to hate that little brat?
So much. And I love him now. I would
love
fist fight
the complete
everyone.
turnaround. Yeah, I just love him.
Yeah. He might be a little twerp, but he's mine now.
Yes.
Okay. So lightning round questions. Here we go. So on Andor, we have people, talking about, when's Vader going to be on? Vader's not going to show up. If he does,
that's weird.
I'll be the most surprised person ever. However, who do you think is a realistic person to show up on Andor?
Well, one of my biggest disappointments with Andor is the fact that Mon Mothma apparently is married to a man. So Mon Mothma's actual female wife, I think, is the most likely. I think that this bearding will end and the very obvious lesbian Mon Mothma will gloriously come out at some point during the show.
Oh, she hates him. She hates her husband.
I said what I said.
I agree with you. Give us Mon Mothma's girlfriend.
Ditch the beard. Shave.
Ditch the beard. So I would guess, I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe a realistic thing to show up is, or the person, I should say, to show up could be someone related with the Death Star stuff. Like maybe some idea gets floated, or maybe he comes across Orson Krennic and like one of the one of the Empire bases that he has to infiltrate and go on and get something from, and you can tie that back in. I don't know. He might be a good candidate.
Krennic showing up would definitely make sense. And
yeah, that's a nice one.
Galen Erso
could potentially show up, yeah.
And he would be somebody that I think the fandom would really enjoy seeing. And I don't think it would be fan servicey.
Yeah, no, that would make sense.
Fan servicey might be if Jyn Erso showed up, just in like a screenshot. But I don't think she is. I think
at this point, her and Saw Gerrera haven't seen each other for a while. So
yeah,
I don't see her showing up. I know we're getting some Saw.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
Oh.
He was in the trailer. I know.
Sorry, I don't.
He stresses me out too.
He stresses me out. He stresses me out in Rogue One. He stresses me out in the Clone Wars. And did he show up in the Bad Batch? I cannot remember.
Yeah, he was in the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Did he show up in Rebels too? He shows up in Jedi Fallen Order.
He's in Fallen Order, and he's everywhere.
And he was in Rebels.
He's in everything.
He's in everything, and I've seen enough of this man. There's like a meme. It's like, I have had it with this guy. That's me right now.
Yeah, we watched his episode of the Clone Wars with the on Genosha.
Yeah.
Genosis, yeah.
I rarely felt like that watching the Clone Wars. I was just like, can somebody shoot this guy?
He was fine in his introductory episode. I was like, okay, makes sense. It just gets more and more unhinged, which I guess is the point.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the point of his character, definitely.
Yeah.
But, oh boy. Okay, so my person, I think, is Bail Organa might show up.
That makes sense. Yeah.
He has been filming recently.
Yeah.
And I think Jimmy Smits, I think he just loves
and
he loves being Bail Organa.
Yeah, he should.
Yeah,
he
we
does a great
love
job.
him.
I could see Mon Mothma at a Senate meeting and Bail Organa showing up. That's totally within the realm of logic.
Yep. And he was in Rogue One for like a couple minutes, kind of stepped out of the shadows, you know? Okay, so here's question number 2. I was reading an interview with Christian Bale. This was a couple weeks ago now. And he said that he wanted to be in a Star Wars movie. And he was just in the MCU. I know that a lot of people from the MCU have talked about wanting to be in a Star Wars movie, like Chris Evans and Brie Larson. I guess my question is, who from the MCU would you actually want to see in the MCU? I mean, in Star Wars.
I mean, Brie Larson can come.
It would be cool to see Iman Vellani show up. She would be real cool. Yeah. She'd be a breath of fresh air.
She's so amazing.
I know. I love her. Like, she would make the scenes just charming. That's just who she is. Like, that's not an act. That's just, like, her charisma.
That was true. Charming.
Yeah.
Like, she's the delight.
Mm-hmm.
She would be good on that Skeleton Crew show. You just, like, make fun of Jude Law the whole time.
Oh, what if she was one of the older Padawans? Oh, that would be so
That would
neat.
be amazing.
Yeah. Aw, okay, now I really need her in the show. Or anywhere in Star Wars.
I just say, or anywhere. Like, somebody hire her more.
Yeah. She's just a good little soul to watch on your screen.
Mm-hmm.
That's my
And
thing.
I love her little stories about how she would text Kevin Feige and tell him he was wrong about stuff.
Can she do that with Ryan Johnson and JJ? That'd be great.
Oh my God. That would be amazing.
We got to figure out if she's a Star Wars fan.
Okay, so my pick is always going to be Elizabeth Olsen.
It wouldn't be you if it wasn't Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah. I mean, she could, not as Scarlet Witch, but she'd make an amazing Jedi.
Yes.
Again, with the Jedi, yes, I know, but... Okay, and so the last question... I've got the MCU on the brain. Sorry, guys. So, you know how they announced the Deadpool Wolverine movie?
Yeah.
And everybody's, lost their minds over it, and, with good reason. Who would you want to see a team up in Star Wars universe on that level? Two people, with a rivalry, and a whole movie of them would be absolutely hilarious to watch.
I mean, my joke answer is that we've already seen it in the episode where Mace Windu and Jar Jar team up.
That was amazing.
Yeah. My first thought was Callus and Zeb, but we've seen that already.
Yeah, that was good. So, I mean, so was Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Dooku being tied together.
Yeah, that energy, that kind of, I mean...
We've seen Ezra and Maul.
Yeah.
We've seen that.
Oh my gosh. Those are our famous, those are our favorite
I
kind of
pitch to
moments.
you, Leia and Sheev Palpatine have to cooperate to get out of some kind of old temple together.
Oh my God. Okay.
I love it so much.
That's great.
It has the right level of chaos energy.
Do you guys remember the officer? Oh, got it. So maybe Luke Skywalker and Piet
Yes.
do something.
Oh, yes.
That would be so great.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it Admiral Piet?
Yeah. I always call him Pete.
I had to
Good
look
old
it up.
Admiral Pete.
I had to.
I'm pretty sure it's not Pete.
No, because I had to watch what Vader calls him. He's like Piet.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was Pete for me for a while too.
You see, this is the stuff that this is what the Star Wars fans want, I think.
Yes. Stupidity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nonsense and shenanigans and adventures, and it has to be
100%.
funny. Yeah.
I think I would go with something based off of that book, Vader and Thrawn together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
for sure.
that would be absolutely amazing. Legitimately an amazing Disney Plus show, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
Or the new Luke and Lando book. I haven't read it or anything, but the two of them never really barely interacted with each other in the movies.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think the two of them would be a really cool dynamic to see. Of course, casted with different actors,
Yeah.
But I just think that would be really fun. Can we get a Star Wars comedy? I think is...
I think we need a Star Wars comedy, but I don't think it's in the cards.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're anything like us, Star Wars is a constant comedy.
Oh yeah, definitely. We can make anything into a comedy.
Oh, is Obi-Wan having a very good, very bad, sad day? Oh, it's friggin' hilarious.
He sure is. So yeah, I think that will do it. Anything else, guys?
Nope.
So the state of the galaxy is, as we said, kind of bleak, but Andor is a very good show. Watch it. And that's all we got. So thanks for tuning into the Kyber Collective, guys. If you like what you heard, please give us a like. And if you've got something to say, drop us a line. The best way that you can find us is on Twitter at Kyber Collective. And until next time, may the Force be with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.